Hi, I'm Tom Bradford. In this live stream, I'm going to talk about tax residency in Ireland. If you're coming in under one of the visa routes to Ireland that I talk about on this channel. So I've talked about several. First one is the startup visa. Now you need 75,000 euros to establish your startup in Ireland. But there's also the critical skills route, where if you're paid either 32,000 euros through your Irish company or 64,000 euros through your Irish company, depending on your skill set, then you can qualify for a stamp 4 visa and be on a pathway to residency after 5 years. Or if you have sufficient disposable funds, you can come in under the Immigrant Investor Program, where you simply invest 1 million euros into a real estate investment trust, for example, and secure a stamp 4 visa immediately. Either way, it's going to be a 5-year track to Irish citizenship. These are residency programs rather than citizenship by investment programs. You're not in any way purchasing citizenship. The attitude of the Irish authorities is you should not be in a better position from an immigration perspective coming in under one of these routes than a medical worker coming in for a work visa, for example. So the important thing you need to take into account, and really an opportunity for managing your wealth, is the very favourable tax regime in Ireland for resident but non-domiciled individuals. So if you're a tax resident in Ireland, then you can opt out of tax residency in another jurisdiction. And there are many double taxation agreements between Ireland and other jurisdictions, which may include yours, where the effect of which is that if you're tax resident in Ireland, then you won't be deemed to be tax resident in your jurisdiction. And what that can mean is if you're not domiciled in Ireland, then you can potentially avoid tax perfectly lawfully on your income and capital gains in your home country or worldwide, and also not have to pay them within Ireland. You would only have to pay Irish tax on the tax that is remitted to or brought into Ireland, or earned directly in Ireland. But if you have passive income, for example, worldwide or from your home country, then potentially through tax structuring and your residency in Ireland, you can have a very tax efficient structure where the vast majority of your wealth is effectively secured tax free. Now, let's just go through the stages. So in broad terms, a non-domiciled Irish tax resident individual is only subject to tax on income from Irish sources. This means that if you come in under the IIP, I've used that as an example, that's the Immigrant Investor Program, but it also applies to startup visa or work visa programs, and you manage your residence appropriately, then your foreign income and gains are only taxable if they're brought into Ireland. So if you become tax resident in Ireland, then you can benefit from many double taxation agreements. It can often have the effect that as a tax resident in Ireland, you don't have to pay tax in your home country, depending on a particular treaty. And because you're not domiciled in Ireland, then you don't pay tax on that foreign income or your capital gains either. So if you have a stamp 4 visa, then you can get this either immediately through the Immigrant Investor Program or through coming in under work visa after 2 years, and then you only need to be in Ireland for once per year. And one of the really interesting points is that if you want to establish a new co in Ireland and you fall within the critical skills regime, which, as I say, either means, let's say you're a tech professional and you have and you can be paid through your new company 32,000 euros, then you can qualify for that visa. For that you need an Irish director. You can't simply come in and establish a company, because there's a so-called 50-50 rule in Ireland, where for every foreign non-Irish person who comes in under a work visa, there's also got to be an Irish worker engaged. So that can fit in nicely, because if you engage an Irish director for your company, then there's certain administrative functions that need to be conducted as well, then you can qualify for the critical skills permit. And if you don't fall within the critical skills list, then as long as you're paid €64,000, at least €64,000 through your new entity, then you can come in on that basis. And if you're to do that, then you actually don't need to go through the Immigrant Investor Program or the Startup Visa Program necessarily. You'd still need to have a business plan, a business case, a viable commercial case for coming into Ireland. But typically, I think what this is best for is if you already have a business and you're looking to set up a base in Ireland, then you can come under this route, which is familiar to many of the tech giants, for example, that come into Ireland, engage people locally, set up a new company there, and come in that way. So these tax considerations apply across the board, whatever visa route you're considering. You should look at this. So to be a tax resident in Ireland, you only need to spend more than 183 days in Ireland in the tax year, or spend over 280 days in Ireland over 2 consecutive years. And for the Immigrant Investor Program, for example, you only need to come in once every year. But for Irish citizenship, I'm going to be doing a video on this. There's been some new case law, the effect of which is that you need to be in, if you're applying for citizenship after 5 years, then you need to show that you've been in the country all of the year for each of those years, say for up to 60 days. So if the form, citizenship form, application form, requires you to state absences in each of the 5 years which are over 60 days. And if they're over 60 days, then they've got to be justified. But if they're under 60 days in each year, then they don't need to be justified. So I'm going to be doing a video especially on that. But if you're simply coming in on to secure, residency under IIP, and you yourself are not looking to secure citizenship, it may be that your family is looking to secure citizenship, then for you'll be able to renew that residency indefinitely. And it may be that your family can spend longer in Ireland, perhaps your family and children. But for you personally, if you want more freedom to perhaps take care of your business abroad, then that should not be a problem. You as long as you structure it correctly, you can be classified as a non-domiciled person from the perspective of Irish tax law, and either non-resident or, as I say, ideally the ideal position, tax resident, or ideal position for many, tax resident but non-domiciled. So you can show from the perspective of other jurisdictions that you're tax resident in Ireland and therefore taxable there, but because you're not domiciled there, you benefit from this generous regime, of course, which is designed, like in the UK, to attract foreign investors and people looking to protect their wealth internationally. There's still going to be tax liabilities, but they're fairly minimal, and allow you to therefore to maximise perhaps other investments in Ireland, perhaps into your new business there, or in employing people locally. So there's no statutory definition of domicile under Irish law, and it's a concept which, like in UK law, has been developed through the courts. Essentially, every individual is born with a domicile of origin, and it's possible for a person to lose that domicile of origin and acquire a domicile of choice. Here, you'd be looking to have a defensible case for showing that you're domiciled in another jurisdiction, because the tax benefits here arise from you being tax resident in Ireland, but non-domiciled. And so you'd be looking to identify another jurisdiction where you have an arguable case for domicile. As for how you justify that to the tax authorities, well, at the point that you have to actually declare tax in Ireland, and that may not come very quickly. But at the point you have to declare that, then you would need to have a statement of affairs which justifies your position on domicile and explains it. So if you're called upon to justify that, but it's essentially a box that you tick in your return, and there's no formal application process. It's a self-declaration, but one which needs to be made on a defensible basis, of course. Then the next slide I've got is structuring your affairs before entry to Ireland. Basically, what you'll need to do is, because tax is payable on money that you, as a tax resident non-domicile person, it's paid on money that you bring in to Ireland. What you'll need to do is structure your affairs so as to segregate remittances, so that tax is only paid on the money remitted and not on the funds from which they originate. And that typically involves a segregation of finances, so that taxable gains and income from before your residency are clearly delineated. So I hope that's helpful. I think Ireland is a great jurisdiction, a great potential option for citizenship or second citizenship, or for residency. The non-domicile regime is at least as good there as it is for the UK. In many ways it's simple, and in the UK there are various charges which you have to pay to retain non-domiciled status, which are not applicable in Ireland. It is in the EU, and Ireland is a committed member of the EU, which has other benefits. So if you have Irish citizenship, then you'd have a free movement within the European Union. That's attractive for many. Dublin is a great city, of course, many other great places in Ireland, but there are real estate opportunities, notwithstanding the corona crisis, and so investment is not short of investment opportunities. I think in terms of education for your children, lots of very famous, excellent educational institutions and schools, but also at a university level, and great connections with the UK. And the really nice thing about Ireland is it's part of the common travel area, and therefore once you're a citizen of Ireland, you're actually treated as you're not treated as a quote foreigner or alien, to use the language of the legislation from the perspective of UK legislation. So that means that once you have Irish citizenship, it's equivalent to having British citizenship. Under the EU settlement scheme, you can. It's entirely optional to apply for settled status, so you can simply travel on your Irish passport within the common travel area, without the need really to take any further action. And the constitutional or treaty arrangements between the UK and Ireland have been confirmed, notwithstanding the exit from the European Union. So lots of great advantages, and I think from a visa perspective, it's probably more flexible. Ireland at the moment is more flexible in terms of what it offers than the UK. So many of my clients come in under into the UK under what's called the sole representative visa, or the startup visa, or innovator visa, or the investor visa. But the investor visa for the UK requires that you invest 2 million euros. For the UK requires that you invest £2 million, and the investor visa for Ireland requires that you invest €1 million. Now, for the UK, you have to invest in UK shares, and at the moment, particularly during the corona crisis, some people are reluctant to invest in UK shares. But under the Ireland residency by investment program, you invest €1 million in generally in real estate, which is actually not permitted under the UK regime. So interesting differences. I think there are advantages to both. For some, the UK is a must for for various reasons, London is still going to be the financial centre of the region for the foreseeable future, and it's a choice which is informed by the immigration routes. I'd be, of course, delighted to help you with advising you on your visa options, and I work with, of course, the tax and Irish experts to coordinate solutions for my clients. I've got some other good content coming up about this, and as I say, specifically on the next video on Irish citizenship and the new case law on that. I hope this was useful. I'm just going to check whether there are any questions because this is a live stream. Let me just have a look. Yeah, so Shafiq, thank you very much for your question. You asked, is it possible to get settled in Ireland with business registration? Shafiq, the answer to your question is there are specific routes which involve registration, business registration, but business registration by itself does not provide a route to residency. Let me just quickly switch back. So through it is possible to register if, for example, you have an existing business and you're setting up a subsidiary of it, then that can be registered in Ireland. And if you qualify for the critical skills permit, then subject to employing an Irish director, then you could qualify for a critical skills work permit. Or if you don't and you're not in one of the prohibited roles under the work visa regime and you're paid €64,000, then you can again qualify for the critical skills permit, and that's a 2-year pathway to a stamp 4 visa, which then takes you through to year 5, and at year 5 you can apply for citizenship. Now part of that process involves registering a business, but as I say, it takes more than the actual registration of the business to give rise to any right of to qualify under any of the relevant visa routes. The investor route, of course, doesn't involve business registration. The startup route does involve business registration, but you need a qualifying idea that's approved by a committee. I must say that in terms of the startup program versus the Irish one versus the UK startup program versus the Canada one, of all of them, I would say that the UK startup program yields the most predictable results in that the criteria are much more transparent. In Ireland, it's subject to the decision of a committee, which does not yield predictable results if you look at the kinds of businesses that are endorsed. So it may be that establishing a subsidiary in Ireland, if you qualify for the critical skills permit, that might be a better approach if Ireland is a must. So those are my observations, and thank you very much for the questions. I don't think there are any questions for now anymore on the live stream, but if you do have any questions, you can touch base with me on the contact details below. Either WhatsApp me, or you can for legal advice and assistance you can also email me on those details. Feel free to subscribe and click the notification bell. I hope that was helpful, and I will say goodbye for now.